If we continue with the judgment at paragraph 142, Nkobo says the subject matter involved here is the termination of a contract of employment for poor work performance. The source of power in question, Nkobo points out, is contractual. He says the fact that Transnet is a creature of statute and exercises this immense power is neither here nor there. It does not detract from the fact that Chirwa her employment was terminated in terms of a contract and not legislation. He says Transnet exercised contractual power in terminating her services. It does not involve the implementation of legislation, which would constitute administrative action. Nkobo takes this reasoning from the Fetcher case and the Safu case, and he comes to the conclusion, therefore, Chirwa's termination of employment by way of contract did not constitute administrative action. And he says at paragraph 1, I'll give you the paragraph number, but he comes to the conclusion it follows that the conduct of Transnet did not constitute administrative action under section 33. And more significantly, at paragraph 150, Nkobo says it is unnecessary to decide whether Paja applies. Now, what Nkobo says at paragraph 150 is in stark contrast with the reasoning articulated by Square J at paragraph 23, where he says that the High Court erred in not considering whether the dismissal constituted administrative action in terms of section 1 of Paja. So that's Nkobo's judgment, where he agrees with Square, and in my view, for the basis upon which he agrees is misplaced, because he refers to section 33 as the basis upon which you should first determine administrative action or not. But it's enlightening to look at Langa, the Chief Justice's dissenting judgment. Langa says at the outset, the central question here is whether the dismissal of Petronella Chirwa is administrative action in terms of Paja. Thank goodness, because we see here a comity or a nexus at paragraph 154 with what was set up by Square in paragraph 23 of the judgment, where Square speaks of Paja, and here Langa is bringing us back to Paja, which brings us back to paragraph 25 of Barter Star, where Paja must be your frame of reference in determining administrative action or not. Langa goes on to ask, what is the nature of Chirwa's claim? He says, Square said that Chirwa alleged Mr. Smith failed to comply with items 8 and 9 of Schedule 8 of the Labour Relations Act. These are known as codes of good practice that an employer must comply with. But Langa says this forms but a small part of Chirwa's claim. He points out that Chirwa alleges, first and foremost, she pleaded that her dismissal constituted administrative action in terms of section 1 of Paja. She also pleaded substantive grounds relying on various provisions of section 6 of Paja. And she referred to items 8 and 9 of the Labour Relations Act used to bolster certain provisions, namely section 62B and section 62F, Roman numeral 1 of Paja, as being a violation of her rights under Paja. Langa goes on to say Chirwa's claim is that she was dismissed and her dismissal constituted administrative action for purposes of Paja, and he says that her claim should be evaluated in terms of Paja, not the Labour Relations Act. And At paragraph 159, Langer says the following, I quote, "Whatever we think of the wisdom of her election to avoid the specialized provisions of the LRA, we must evaluate the claim